Next, we're going to talk about Tarrytown Light on the Hudson River in New York.
The Terrytown Lighthouse went into service on October 1st, 1883, about 20 miles north of New York City on the east shore of the Hudson River. It's a cast iron caisson structure with 4 stories inside and a light 56 feet above mean high water. Inside the watchroom was automatic striking machinery for a fog bell, which was mounted on the side of the tower.
The first keeper, Jacob Ackerman, remained at the station for 21 years. Ackerman and his wife, Henrietta, had no children, so they kept chickens in a spare bedroom. The Ackermans spent their 50th wedding anniversary in the lighthouse trapped by ice floes. When he retired at the age of 78, it was estimated that Ackerman had saved 19 people from drowning.
The Tappan Bridge, spanning the Hudson River at its widest point, was completed in 1955. The bridge, with powerful lights and a foghorn on its center span, rendered the lighthouse virtually obsolete. After years of abandonment, the lighthouse was acquired by Westchester County at the urging of community groups and historical societies. After some renovation, it was opened to the public in 1983.
The lighthouse has again fallen into disrepair in recent years, but Westchester County recently announced a major restoration project. Westchester County is led by County Executive George Latimer, who took office in January 2018 as the 9th County Executive. I had the pleasure of speaking with George Latimer a couple of weeks ago about the upcoming restoration. Let's listen to that now. I'm speaking today with George Latimer, who is the County Executive for Westchester County in New York, and we're going to be talking about some exciting new plans for Tarrytown Lighthouse. Thank you so much for joining me today, George. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be with you, Jerry.
First of all, let me ask you, I know it primarily as Terrytown Lighthouse, but I've also seen it referred to as Sleepy Hollow Lighthouse. I don't know if one or the other, you consider one more correct than the other, but what do most people refer to the lighthouse as, do you think?
Usually as the Lighthouse. This is where you'll get your master's degree in local government once I finish the explanation, because a lot of these things are based on jurisdictions that people don't really think in terms of every day. There are 2 villages that sit side by side, Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow. A number of years ago, Sleepy Hollow's original name was North Tarrytown and North Tarrytown. Mm-hmm. And North Tarrytown changed their name to Sleepy Hollow because it was the location of the where the Ichabod Crane story was placed, and the high school mascot is the Headless Horseman and all that. So the park itself that the lighthouse sits in and the lighthouse itself sits in Sleepy Hollow. Mm-hmm. But because it was North Tarrytown, and it's on the border, the Tarrytown North Sleepy Hollow border is right there. It was always referred to as Tarrytown historically. Right now, we're not going to rename the lighthouse. We're going to fix it. But the logic of tying it into that Ichabod Crane, Sleepy Hollow image of that community makes a lot of sense for tourist purposes. I don't think people are going to come from miles around to see this lighthouse as they might Barnegat or the one on Hilton Head or some of the other great lighthouses. But to tie in with other features that are there. We have some historic homesteads in the area. We have the old Dutch church, the Rockefeller Estate, Kykuit is not far. So if somebody came to spend a day, see a few sites, have lunch, perhaps the lighthouse would be part of their visit.
Sure, that all makes a lot of sense. I'm sure most, if not all, our listeners are quite familiar with the Sleepy Hollow stories, Washington Irving, Ichabod Crane. They're certainly a great part of Americana, American literature. So recently, just in the last couple of weeks, you announced a pretty substantial plan to rehabilitate the Terrytown or Sleepy Hollow Lighthouse. Can you tell me what the basic plans are for that rehabilitation project? Yeah.
Well, let me start by saying that the lighthouse really has been neglected for a long period of time. I've been in office 3.5 years, and we inherited what we think would be a number of different important public facilities that should have been and could have been renovated and were not. Some of them needed work in a more dire straits. Historic homestead, the Miller House, would collapse if we didn't do it. The lighthouse had enough structural stability to survive a little bit. So what we've announced now is to try to pick up after all of these years of neglect. It is officially a $3.4 million project, and it really intends to stabilize the structure and stop further deterioration, and then make it available for visitors to go in it and see it, walk to the top and all that. Mm-hmm. The work that has to be done is almost this normal grocery list for any old structure that has been neglected. So we have to repair and repaint a host of different things, the windows and doors. There are cracks in the cellar and in the caisson area. We have to replace the caisson cracks with stitch plates. We have to clean the foundation masonry, restore interior plaster, restoration of the wood floors, reconstruction of the landing area between the bridgeway and the gangway, the bridge and the gangway, which gets you in. Have to put a new security gate on the mainland side of this. And of course, electric and exterior lighting. It's a heavy duty grocery list. There's exterior cast iron, and that's essential to fix as well. So it is it's not a expansion of the building. It is not sort of repurposing it in a different way, but it's bringing it back to a normal, good quality. You could walk inside, walk through it, have lighting, have, the integrity of the walls and all those things in place.
That sounds great. A lot of those things are things that happen pretty commonly with caisson lighthouses, cast iron lighthouses, like problems with the caisson cracks and things like that. So I'm not surprised to hear the laundry list or whatever that you're talking about.
As we do the project, anything can happen, and construction projects like this may uncover additional needs, additional problems. And you find that I think the political will exists to spend a bit more if necessary. We don't want to spend it, but if there is a need to go beyond the 3.4 million, I believe there is a desire to do what it takes to get it fixed.
About how long is the project expected to take?
Well, if we get the benefit of good weather, and who can predict that, we would open it roughly 12 months from the construction start, and the construction start would come sometime between now and the end of the year. So if you want a hard opening date, I'd say, the end of 2022. Now, any of the exterior work is going to be done in good weather. We have good weather now, and we'll have good weather next spring and summer, which is still part of the construction cycle of this. If we get to the fall a year from now, then whatever interior work has to be done could be done without worrying about the season or the weather. But weather permitting, end of 2022, year and a half, a little less than a year and a half worth of work. That would be my guess.
When you talk about opening, are you talking about increased public access to the lighthouse?
Yeah, we're going to encourage tourism. And as I mentioned a second ago, there's a lot of things in this immediate area that represent tie-ins, a little bit different purposes, but I mentioned there's historic homesteads. Phillipsburg Manor is part of the historic Hudson Valley sites that are there. It's not too far away from this. We have the Old Dutch Church, which is, and that was referenced, I think, in the Ichabod Crane story. It's a beautiful building, beautiful stained glass. We're not far from the Rockefeller Estate at Kykuit and the Rockefeller State Park that's around that. So you definitely want to visit that if you came here. Behind you, you have the new bridge that's been constructed across the Hudson to replace the old Tappan Z Bridge. It's a pretty impressive bridge, the Cuomo Bridge, and that bridge has a walkway along the side that's very modernized. Bicyclists and people want a good, healthy, long walk can do that. So that's nearby. We still have a project ahead of us, and that is to continue to work on completing the river walk along the Hudson River. Ultimately, our plans, it's going to extend longer than I'm in office, but would be to create a path that you could start out on the Bronx border and walk the full north-south distance along the Hudson River. Parts of it are in place, parts of it are not. And we're going to be working on trying to do the engineering studies for the portion that goes under the bridge, because we're going to have to extend out over the river to do that. But when that's done, this, the walking path or the bicycling path, whatever, however people use it, it's going to go right past the lighthouse. So we expect a lot of tourism. We want people to go in, walk around, and, we haven't yet figured out, all of the little accoutrements that will go with it. But, we're excited that this is yet another part of our tradition of this county that we're reclaiming.
I look forward to visiting there when the lighthouse restoration is done and some of this other work takes place. I was last there in 2008, so things have changed quite a bit, including the new bridge and everything. So really look forward to seeing all the improvements. So why do you think this project is important to the community there, Tarrytown, and the county, Westchester County?
There's a couple of levels. The first level, the one I think we've already talked about, which is it is a generator of tourism, not necessarily as the sole destination in the area, but as an added destination, an added feature to see, and that will help us attract tourism. So on that level of it, it's good. On the second level of it, I think it's capturing a portion of our past when, these lighthouses existed everywhere. It was a part of the Hudson River being the main source of transportation in the colonial era that took you into the inland. And ultimately, when it became connected in part of the Erie Canal system, it became a reason why the whole interior of the United States of America grew. Because once you connected the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes, now you're halfway through the United States, and you can bring product, from Minnesota and Wisconsin all the way through and bring it through the New York Harbor. And this was a lighthouse that existed as part of that safety process. So you're touching, in addition to something that has an iconic status for us, it's really something of history as well. And I think we're proud of that history. And then also the Kingsland Point Park, which wraps around it, and the new complex that's going up for townhouses nearby, this enhances the value of that. And I suspect, people who look to move to Westchester do so looking for added value in sort of intangibles, things that represent creating an ambience that makes them want to live there. And this lighthouse, we think, has that feature. We're all kind of in love with the concept of the lighthouse here. We've got a lot of wonderful things in Westchester County, but we also have a lighthouse. And even though it's not, the huge size that, some of them are, we think it's a good attraction, and we think it's worth the investment.
It's a wonderful community. I really enjoyed my visit there. And I'm glad you kind of give a brief explanation of the navigational importance of the Hudson River, so vital to the history of our country. And of course, the lighthouses are an important part of that. Any points that you think we haven't talked about that maybe we should?
Well, what I want to do, Jeremy, is compliment you, your interest and your devotion to these lighthouses. In and of themselves, they're interesting physical structures, but they also speak to something about, the American history, the American experience. And we've tried in our administration, we have one lighthouse, we have a lot of other types of things. We've tried to reconnect with that tradition. And we think that's part of why we have the country we have. I think you have to recognize the past, and you have to acknowledge it, and you have to respect it. And taking a perfectly functional lighthouse and restoring it to a level by which people can come in and see it and remember what it was like, once upon a time when this was what was guiding us on the transportation corridor, which was the Hudson River. All of that is important. These things were bequeathed to us, those of us in office today, those of us who live in Westchester today. These good things were bequeathed to us by our grandparents and our great-grandparents, and we show them honor and respect when we restore them. There's a sense that, I want to, crystallize or liquefy whatever resources I have now and live the best life I can live now, and the lowest taxes and the most advantages. But we've got to protect things for the future. There's got to be a little kid born now that will grow up to maturity and be able to see that lighthouse and learn how to connect with the past of this nation. Otherwise, if we don't connect to the past of this nation, we lose our traditions, we lose all rooting, and everything becomes the here and now of the moment. And we've got to fight hard to try to protect our connection to that past.
Beautifully said. I can't improve on that. You summed it up really nicely there, the historical importance of the lighthouse and all historic structures anywhere, really. George Latimer, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and I want to wish you the best with the upcoming restoration of the Terrytown Lighthouse. And again, it's a beautiful community around there. The larger county area is just a really nice place to visit, and I recommend to our listeners that they check it out. Maybe wait till the lighthouse restoration is done or not, but it's going to be exciting when you increase public access and open up that lighthouse too. Really looking forward
Jeremy,
to that.
I don't know where you call home, but if you can make a commitment when we do the grand opening of this lighthouse, when it's fully done, we cut the ribbon. I'd like you there. I'd like you to be a part of it. And I'd like you to be one of the first people to say, I saw the renovated lighthouse. So I don't know if you can make that commitment today. Do your best.
I will absolutely do my best. I'm in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, so I'm not exactly real close,
trip.
but
I live right next door to you. I live in Rye, only I live in Rye, New York, not Rye, New Hampshire. So.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. When I think of Rye, New Hampshire, but I've certainly been through Rye, New York too. Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much, George. And I wish you all the best with this project.
And best to you too. Thanks for giving us a chance to talk about our lighthouse.
To learn more about all the things to see in Westchester County, New York, go to visitwestchesterny.com.
I'm really hoping I can take George up on his invitation and be there for the rededication of the Tarrytown Lighthouse. It's been too long since I've been in that area.